We are finally live.
All right, well, welcome to A Good Medicine Way tonight. It's great to see everybody here. My name is Steve Dragswolf. Casey is out on the road up to Michigan. I think this was the trip he had where he was taking his son back to college up there. So you guys can be praying for Casey as he's traveling. Um, he uh, he said he'll try to join us tonight. So we'll see if he pops on Zoom at some point here in the future this evening. But other than that, you got me, you got Brian, we got all of us here. And here in house, we're coming to you live from Albuquerque, New Mexico, the land of the Tiwa people, the 19 Pueblos here who have this sovereign land, unceded land for them. And we're going to start it off by moving to our opening prayer with Helen.
Thank you. Creator, we invite you into our presence. We welcome you. For as Creator Sets Free said, where two or three of us gather in your name, he is with us also. As we begin our time together, we release our cares and anything else that would keep us from experiencing more of you in this time together. We focus our hearts and our minds on you. So all glory belongs to you. In your name, amen.
Amen. And we are having some technical issues throughout the evening. So hopefully we got everything sorted and everything is up and running, but in-house and all over the place, it seems like some things are happening. So you guys can keep that in prayers too throughout the evening as we progress. Let's move to our opening song, Good Medicine Way, by Brian.
Wake ya hey ya ho, wake ya hey ya ho, wake ya hey ya hey, wake ya hey ya ho, wake ya hey ya ho, wake ya hey ya hey, wake ya hey ya ho, wake ya hey ya ho, wake ya hey ya hey, wake ya hey ya ho, wake ya hey ya ho. Wake ya hey ya ho, wake ya hey ya hey, wake ya hey ya ho, wake ya hey ya ho, wake ya hey ya hey. The Father sends good medicine, the good medicine way. The Father sends good medicine, the good medicine way. Wake ya hey ya ho, wake ya hey ya ho, wake ya hey ya hey, wake ya hey ya ho, wake ya hey ya ho, wake ya hey ya hey. Oh, wake ya hey ya, oh, wake ya hey, oh, wake ya hey ya, oh. Jesus is good medicine, the good medicine way. Jesus is good medicine, the good medicine way. Wake ya hey ya ho, wake ya hey ya ho, wake ya hey ya hey, wake ya hey ya ho, wake ya hey ya ho, wake ya hey. The Spirit gives good medicine, the good medicine way. The Spirit gives good medicine, the good medicine way. Wake ya hey ya ho, wake ya hey ya ho, wake ya hey ya hey. Wake ya hey ya ho, wake ya hey ya ho, wake ya hey ya hey. Whoa, wake ya hey ya, whoa, wake ya hey, whoa, wake ya hey ya, whoa, wake ya hey. Wake ya hey ya ho, wake ya hey ya ho, wake ya hey ya hey. Wake ya hey ya ho, wake ya hey ya ho, wake ya hey ya hey. Wake ya hey ya ho, wake ya hey ya ho, wake ya hey ya hey. Wake ya hey ya ho, wake ya hey ya ho, wake ya hey ya hey. The good medicine way.
All right. It was a great song. Thank you, Brian. We'll move to Creation Insights. Suparit Taka, is your technology working for you now?
Almost there. Stay on target.
You're one of those nights where everything's deciding to not work.
Yep.
Yeah, it seems like the internet nationwide is being goofy right now, but
Want us to come back to you later on? Taka?
yeah, let's go ahead and do the Lord's Prayer real quick to give her a chance to get her technology sorted, and then hopefully by the time we get through the Lord's Prayer, things will be behaving for her.
All right. See the Lord.
Okay. Oh, I forgot to open up that thing. So let me get that. All right. Creator sets free, shows us how to pray. O great Spirit, our Father from above, we honor your name as sacred and holy. Bring your good road to us, where the beauty of your ways in the spirit world above is reflected in the earth below. Provide for us, day by day, the elk, the buffalo, the salmon, the corn, the squash, and the wild rice, all the things we need for each day. Release us from the things we have done wrong. In the same way, we release others who have done wrong to us. Guide us away from the things that tempt us to stray from your good road, and set us free from the evil one and his worthless ways. Aho, may it be so.
And our time for smoke signals and giveaway. Casey isn't here. He's the one with the active schedule and full of all the smoke signals. So I got nothing on my end. I don't know, Brian, if you got anything you want to share here as far as smoke signals go.
Well, just we do the book study on Tuesday nights. I believe we're still going through Joshua's Bible study,
Yes.
and that's kind of a trial run to see if we can talk InterVarsity Press into picking it up. So we're kind of doing a trial to see how it goes and tweak it a little bit here if we discover things that aren't going well. But yeah, as far as I know, that is going good, and I believe that's 6:30, right? Cheryl, is when you guys normally meet.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Twilight-
Out here in Missouri, it's 7:30, and I think, was it Kimberly it's gonna help teach?
Yeah,
tomorrow?
because you're a central time zone. Yeah, so 6:30 Mountain, 7:30 Central, 8:30 if you're on the East Coast, and 5:30 if you're on the West Coast. And if you're in Hawaii, that's too much math for my brain right now. So
Too far. Hey, Twyla is a part of it, so I'll let you share a little bit about it, and you can just tell people about tomorrow.
Okay, so far we've been having maybe 5 come on to class. Can y'all hear me? Can y'all hear me? Okay. There's 5 or 6 maybe that come on to class, and since Casey's traveling a lot this summer, he's gonna give each of us an opportunity to be the leader of the lesson, and I didn't know he was going to be gone, but I volunteered to get mine over with. So tomorrow night, I'm the one in charge. So who knows how it's going to go, but we're on lesson 6 tomorrow night at 6:30, and promptly at 8, we try to wind it down so we're not on the TV meeting all night long, because we could be. So yeah. And I think the link is on Facebook. Is that right, Brian?
yeah, I'll put it after the gathering tonight. I'll post the book study link fresh, so it's right near the top of the feed.
Thank you, because I have a lot of trouble getting on my new tablet. I cannot get on this meeting on my tablet. I have to use my cell phone, but that's okay. At least I have that.
Yeah, and that's awesome. At Good Medicine Way, we really put an importance into having as much of a non-hierarchical structure as we can. And part of that is creating opportunities for everybody to share and give their perspective and take the lead on things. So yeah, that's great to hear, because that's an important thing for Good Medicine Way, that we really want to create opportunities for the whole body of Christ to be actively involved, and not just to have like one leader and a bunch of passive people, but try to keep everything dynamic and active. So yeah, very cool.
Yeah, and it's a great place to get involved too. If you're somebody who's just watching on the live streams or checking every once in a while, emailing us, you'll hear all the information here coming up in this next segment. But it's been super great for me, being newer to Good Medicine Way and seeing how Casey is wanting everybody to take part, everyone to find a role within Good Medicine Way. So there's a role for you, there's a place for you here in Good Medicine Way, and it's been a wonderful experience for myself. So, all right, Brian, anything else smoke signals wise? Or should we just move on to the giveaway song?
Well, I guess we can move into giveaways, but if somebody thinks of something that needs announcing, just let us know and we'll slide it in. Yeah, do pray for Casey as he's on the road. The older you get, the more challenging traveling gets, but Casey keeps stepping up to the challenge and going all over the place. So hopefully all that's going well for him. So yeah, definitely keep him in our prayers. I'm not sure about any powwows or feast days or anything going on, but please, in your local area, try to find out about those things because we really want to be actively supporting those kinds of things as well. And yeah, I'm up here in the what the white folks call Denver, Colorado, the traditional lands of the Arapaho, Cheyenne, and Ute, among others. And so we're very thankful and honored to be part of their legacy, and are grateful for the care they have given to the land. And I think that's helped it survive the onslaught of capitalist colonialization. But it looks like we got Upitazaka live. So while her stuff is working, let's give her a chance to do her creation insight, just in case things go haywire on again. So go ahead and take it away, Upitazaka.
Hey, I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm having a lot of trouble right now. Like I don't know what it is today, this particular hour. I got knocked out of my Zoom a couple times. I got knocked out on the phone and on my laptop. And right now, my baby girl is kind of having a meltdown because she has a really bad headache. So if you guys could pray for her for that, that would be awesome. As part of the smoke signals time, I was going to say something about the Would Jesus Eat Fry Bread that's coming up in November. I know Uncle said that he was going to possibly try to send me and Miss Nikki over there to Alaska and Anchorage, Alaska. So that's really cool. So if you all, whoever can help us just a little bit, that would be amazing. I know tickets are kind of expensive for us to get out there, especially us being down here in the lower 48. So, lower 48, lower 49, however it goes. But also, so for my creation insight, I was thinking a little bit about what had been shared with what our relative Joshua will be sharing tonight. And I started thinking about like how we're able to work together and how we're able to kind of grow to be as part of the one body, you know what I mean? I know it's kind of, maybe it might be a weird reference, but how we're all related, we're all connected, we all go through certain things at the similar times, And so I was just thinking a lot about prayer. I have this picture, this little picture collage things that I put together during, just times when I'm just feeling something in my spirit. And so I made this thing about manifesting because I remember there was someone that had talked to us that talked about manifesting or wanting to make something new or dream about something in your life. And so I made this one about praying. At first I put prayer, but then I changed it to pray. And basically to pray for one another is to like petition on each other's behalf. Um, to petition is a willingness to accept God's ultimate plan, balancing human desires with divine sovereignty. And while I was doing a little bit of research on the word, really, I came across Philippians 4, verses 6 and 7, which basically says, "Do not be anxious about anything, but in every situation, by prayer and petition, with thanksgiving, present your requests to God." In the First Nations Version translation, it says, "Do not let your hearts be weighed down with anything. Instead, with every step you take, send your voice to the Great Spirit, asking Him for the things you need. And in all your prayers, remember to give Him thanks. Then the peace and harmony of the Great Spirit, which goes far and beyond our small and weak ways of thinking, will watch over your hearts and minds through the chosen one, Creator Sets Free Jesus." And so I think for this week, I'd like to ask each of us to, pray for one another for the things that we are going through. Some of us like to put it out there, and if not, just lift up a little prayer for whatever anyone else may need as we grow together, as we sprout from the tree, as we grow as the branches and the leaves, as we grow as the grass, just I feel that it's very important for us to speak to Creator on each other's behalves. And and if there are any prayers, any prayer requests, just go ahead and put it in the chat or put it in the comments of the videos that you're watching, because we'll read it, and we will also join you in prayer and lift up those things that you need, those things that you want. Always pray for others before you pray for yourself. But yeah, so that's kind of what my creation insight was, just thinking about prayer and how we can connect with one another and help each other to grow. So thank you. Aho, doya, pilami yapi.
Thank you, Pititaka. I think it's a great word for us tonight. And just like you said, go ahead and write your prayers in the chat, and we'll gather them. And I don't know, Brian, are we able to maybe send it out with an email? I don't know how that side of things works. If we gather everybody's prayer requests in the chat, and then throughout the week, just so we remember. I don't know if that's something that we can do or.
Yeah, we could. We don't have like an established protocol right now as far as that, but yeah, we definitely have a lot of people that are part of the Good Medicine Way circle that are definitely people of intense prayer. And so yeah, if you have a prayer request, definitely just send it to our email. Might as well just throw that out there now at gmw4abq@gmail.com. It's the letters GMW for Good Medicine Way, the number 4, and the letters ABQ for Albuquerque. So GMW4abq@gmail.com. Yeah, so if you have like a request or something you'd like prayer for, you can send that there. Also, if you want to just kind of be more involved with Good Medicine Way in some way, and you're not quite sure what that should look like or how that should happen, yeah, also just send us an email there, and we'll start a conversation. We love providing opportunities for people. We love building community. So yeah, we'd love to start that conversation with you. And then also, as far as giving and supporting the ministry, obviously, like one need we got there is trying to get Upitaka and Nikki up to the With Jesus Eat Fry Bread. So yeah, we'll definitely need some resources for that. Also, our funding that we've had from the Methodist Church has wound down. So we're trying to figure out some new funding streams to keep things going. And of course, anybody's giving is massively helpful for that. I believe our matching grant is still in effect until the end of the calendar year. So anything you give right now is doubled. So it's a great time to give. And I'll be putting a digital blanket up on the screen. And there's a QR code on that you can scan to give online. I'll also put it in the chats because some people had said that they were having issues with it. It is pinned to the top of our Facebook page, but I guess Facebook has been doing strange things with their formatting. So sometimes people have said it's not actually there when they go to try to find it. So yeah, so I'm going to put them in the chats as well. But the QR code should work. Casey has always said whenever he's on the road, he's able to get that QR code to work. So we'll see how all that goes. All right. And if there's no other announcements, and without further ado, we'll get into that. Oh, also our mailing address will also be on the blanket. So if you prefer not to give online, or if you have a non-monetary thing that you'd like to share with Good Medicine Way, people have given us like instruments, flutes, drums, smudges, blankets, all kinds of things. And if you send something our way, we'll figure out a positive and good way to use it. So our mailing address will be up there for that. Or if you just prefer using checks and money orders instead of giving online, it's that. And then Paul put a little prayer up in the chat for everybody who is in transition and traveling and moving and doing things, which applies to a lot of us right now. So, yeah, thank you for that prayer. And I'll just be doing a short Create in Me song, which is actually a song from the early Jesus movement days. So like in the 70s when all the hippies were coming to Christ. But the song was actually written by the Talbot brothers. So yeah, it's a good song. Oh, actually, I need to change this first. Create in me a clean heart, O God. Let me be like you in all my ways. Give me your strength. Teach me your song. Shelter me in the shadow of your wings. For we are your righteousness. If we've died to ourselves and lived through your death, then we shall be born again to be blessed in your love. Create in me a clean heart, O God. Let me be like you in all my ways. Give me your strength. Teach me your song. Shelter me in the shadow of your wings. For we are your righteousness. If we've died to ourselves and lived through your death, then we shall be born again to be blessed in your love.
Thanks, Brian. So as we move into reading Creator's words, Nikki's gonna read in house here Ephesians 4:11 through 16. Thank you. As we've heard and as we've read, the walking in harmony, And as we ready to prepare to hear from Joshua, we're going to take a moment here for a centering stillness time. And so let this let Creator's words settle in your hearts, settle in your mind, think on it, meditate on it, just as we prepare ourselves for what Creator wants to speak to us tonight. Go ahead, Brian. Thank you, Brian. So tonight we have Joshua Hopping as our speaker tonight. I'm sure a lot of us know him, seen him around, been, have heard him speak and heard him share before. Casey's not here to do the speaker instruction, so Josh, I'll let you introduce yourself and introduce what you're going to talk about tonight, and then you could just jump right in as well with what you have for us.
All right, Toshio Nagata, everybody. I'm glad to be back and sharing with you all. Going from just listening to chatting, so it's always an interesting shift when you go from it. For those who do not know me, or those who might be listening to this recording at a later time, I am a citizen of the Cherokee Nation. I'm kind of in Northwest Arkansas right now, the original people of the Ozarks, or the Osage, in the Ozark Mountains. I am a stomp dancer. I go over to the Cherokee Res once a month over there for ceremony and participating amongst our traditionalist brothers and sisters, which has been amazing. I'm also a former pastor and church planner, pastor about 12, 15 years, depending on how you want to count it. And written a couple of books, went through the seminary, all the kind of fun stuff with that, all the kind of fun things. And that's not my, yeah. And then I have my day job, but which doesn't matter. You always got to be bivocational and put food on the table and so whatever way you want to. But it's always a pleasure. And today, really been a little bit talking about, I think I titled it was Cherokee, what is spiritual formation? Cherokee Christian perspective. And that's what I want to chat a little bit about. This has been a topic they've been chewing on for quite some time, and had a opportunity the last couple of months to be meeting with several men from various tribes. We've been talking through this ideal of spiritual formation from a Christian viewpoint and an indigenous point of view, and sharing a little bit. So I get a chance to share some of these thoughts, and I have way too many thoughts in my head. So we'll see how scatterbrained this chat comes into it. But to get started, like I always do when I come here, I want to start with a story. We got to start with a story. We're storytellers. Our stories, our formations, all of a story. So the story I want to tell is one about the crooked face boy, which is one that some of our elders tell a lot. It's not well known, but it definitely is one that kind of makes the lines. And it's a long story, but I'm going to shorten it down to kind of the highlights for us today. Otherwise, we'll be here for quite some time. The story goes is back in the day. Some may say the second the world. We don't know. It's kind of in that. There's some debate about when it actually happened, but the elders said that we were all the folks of North America. Turtle Island was together in one big village in the area, and we were farmers, and we were kind of searching and growing, and we were kind of basically fat and happy, so to speak, where everything was doing good, and we started beginning to have this desire to search for beauty, for things that were perfect, things that were good. and things that weren't, we cast them aside in the village, and we didn't want anything to do with them. And it was really was that kind of ideal of this is perfection. This is really, nice. And one day, this young lady came up, and she was gorgeous and beautiful, and in the ways of the one, and she like fit all their buckets of what beauty was. And her husband was this, this great warrior, and all the different things you would think of. And they had a child, and this child, when he was born, this little boy was born, his face was crooked. Something was not quite right. And in those days, when you had a kind of that in that time, a child that was deformed, it was basically set out because they weren't full human until they smiled. In those first deals of the baby's life, it wasn't when they smiled, it was when you got to be considered a real. So usually that they would actually just cast out and expose these child. This woman, however, looked at this child and she's like, no. And she went out like the village, like she was supposed to. And she went out into the woods, and surrounding this area of the village, on the side was this deep, dark forest. And no one went into it. They always went to the east or the other directions, but out to the west, there's this part of darkness and wilds and monsters and beasts out there. And she fled out of the village with her baby. She went out to the darkness, into the woods. And she went in there, and it got still and quiet, and night fell, and the birds stopped, and she just grabbed hold of that baby, and she helped it, and she just wasn't sure what was happening, and she kept it. And no matter what happened, she just kept a hold of that child. And then sunlight came, and she continued to be out there as time went. And then finally, the baby smiled, and she went back into the village, and the village people knew what she did. She knew that she had hid out until that long, and they went ahead and accepted her back. But since that day, even though the crooked faced boy was considered human, they didn't want anything to do with the boy. So they were ostracized basically in the village, and they didn't want anything to do with the child. And the mom, they kind of tolerated it a little bit as they kind of needed. Even the family members and stuff really didn't really want it. And soon it was just the crooked faced boy and his mother. Now, even though in the ostracization of the village, every time that child came up to his mom, she bust out into a big smile, and she raised her hands really wide and just grabbed that child. And every single time he came up, no matter what was happening. Now, as the child grows, he began to realize that something was off, as children do as they learn. And soon he realized that, he asked his mom, like, why the rest of the kids aren't playing with them and what's going on. And she tries to cover up and try to make it the best he can, but the child knows that something is not quite right. And as he gets a little bit older, then one day he decides that he's going to leave the village so his mom can actually be able to have things a little bit better than before. And so he leaves, and he goes out, and he goes into the darkness and into the area, and he goes out, and he's saying soon he's covered in the darkness and the forest and the trees, and everything just comes in. And when he's going out there, all of a sudden everything stops, and the wind stops, the birds stop, the animals stop, and he sits there and he gets frightened. As this young little boy, not quite sure the age, but at least enough to be able to know what was doing. And he gets a little scared. He closes his eyes, and then he hears his rustle, and he opens them up, and there's this big monster, this big arms all the way around, and teeth to kind of smile. And the boy just looks up and just smiles and opens his arms up and just gives the monster a hug. And the monster jumps back. It's like, what'd you do that for? I'm here to eat you. I'm here to rip you up. The boy goes, I'm sorry. The only person I ever knew who had their arms wide was my mother. And your arms were wide. And I reminded me of my mother. And she smiled, and you smiled with your big, deals. And you just reminded me of my mother, so I just had to give you a hug. And it melted the monster's heart. And he's like, I want to eat you. Come with me. Can I walk with you? Because there's other monsters bigger than I am out here in this darkness in the forest. And I'm nervous. Can I walk with you? And they were walking. And then one time, there's a little bit of separation. And the monster kind of walks over to a place, everything else. And again, the stillness of the air, and the birds stop, and the fear come over it. And all of a sudden there was even this bigger monster that come rushing in, and then frightened. And again, he raises his arm like he would eat the boy. And all of a sudden, the boy just looks up and he just gives the monster a hug. And again, the same thing. He's like, well, why'd you do that for? He's like, well, your arms were wide like my mother's. Your mouth was spread wide like my mother's when she smiled and looked upon you. And I thought for sure this was you're coming for me. So I just gave you a hug. And that bigger monster just looked astonished. And he's like, oh. So then the three begin to walk. And as they walk through the woods, occasionally one of the monsters will point to a plant or a tree and say, hey, this is a good medicine here for use of this ailment or this problem. And then there'd come time after a couple of weeks or so, it happened again. And every time the monster come, the little crooked-faced boy would just give him a hug. And eventually they head up there and he's like, you know what? They actually were asking about the village, and the monster said that, yeah, we were once part of the village too, because there's just that one village, really in the area, in that place, in that big one. And like we were once there, but we were driven out and we were driven away. And the little time in that kind of the wisdom that sometimes only youngsters can sometimes do, he goes like, why don't we go back and share and tell them about the plants and the trees and the forests and the things. And the mom said, oh, no, we don't want to do that. And then he said, well, let's have a prayer and a dream. And if we dream the same dream, maybe we'll do that. And they fasted and they prayed and they sat for 7 days. And they actually had the same dream that was given to them, and they decided. And then they went back and they went to the village. And in the village, there's those that just scared and ran. Like the monsters are coming, they're coming all. And they scattered and they went to the 4 directions and they ran off. And those that stayed, and they said, and they saw the beauty in the crooked face and the monsters. What was the Cherokees, the Anigatuaki say, well, that was us that stayed, and those that fled were the other tribes that went to the areas, which a little tribal egocentric. So we'll maybe make it say that we'll broaden that up and say, those who stayed or those who kind of follow, but it's a story that the elders say that work our people come from, or those who kind of stayed, and we have the fusion of bringing in the balancing of those that are out coming in, or so I've been told by the elders. So the story, of course, it goes and it had more adventures in the longer version, but that's kind of the cliff notes of that story. And I tell it, and I'll come back to it in a bit, but I just want to kind of have it sitting in our heads just as much as we have the story of small man to the sacred family in the village of desires, or Ephesians that we read earlier. Well, we read and heard. Because when we think about formation and we think about spiritual formation, it's a word that's kind of fancy and it's been tossed around different times. Some of us might have heard it. Some of us might not have heard it in some ways. Sometimes we think of spiritual formation. Some people might think of, quiet times or Bible readings, or they think it was a Catholic thing or Orthodox things or Protestant things or different things. But really, if we look at what that is spiritual formation, it is this ideal and this concept that the word is saying that we are being formed. We're being crafted. We're being formed. As humans, as people, there's a spiritual dimension as well as a body dimension. They're all united, right? You cannot split the spirit from the physical from the spirit. And just as like we are being developed and grown emotionally and physically, our spirit and our souls being formed. And when we think about that being formed, every culture forms as people. Every people group forms as people. Every nation forms as people. The music we listen to, the social media that we read, that we engage in, the movies that we watch, the jobs that we have, the family structures that we live, our spouses, our kids, our grandparents, our parents, our aunties, our uncles, all that's around us every day. The roads that we drive on, the cars that we get into, or the lack of cars, or the lack of everything around us is working and forming upon us as humans. That's just the reality of life. That's morally neutral. It's not a negative thing. That's not a positive thing. That's just speaking the reality. And I think if we're true to ourselves, we realize that that is happening. That is there as we come in. So the question really becomes not am I being formed, but who is forming me, and in what kind of person am I being formed into? What am I allowing to be able to really form me? And that's a deep question, because I think a lot of times we fail to even ask that question. We just take it for granted, or we don't even think about it. We just, hey, I got jobs to do. I got food to eat. I got family to take care of. You got all this stuff going on. And so we just live life. We just live life, quite frankly. And spiritual formation and spiritual discipline is really asking that question of, hey, can we stop and pause for a moment and ask the questions of what kind of person am I becoming, and what am I being formed into? And is that really where I want to go? Is that the direction of the path that really makes the most sense coming in? And in that place of asking about where we're going is the ideal of, like, every tradition has a goal. Every tradition has a focus or a plan, a kind of a destination, so to speak. And the practices have a purpose. Okay. If, in our modern times, we live in the United States surrounded by this desire to buy and to sell, advertisings and marketing and things going in. That's forming us to the goal of living and buying things and to acquire stuff. That's a goal. Our economy is built upon growth and on capitalism, which is to have who has the capital, who has the speed. Now, again, I may have my feelings of economics, but this is not a moral judgment one way or another. I'm just saying that there's a goal that has on it. If you are a follower of other religions, if Buddhism has a goal to kind of the nirvana to be one, or different, every groups have it, and Christianity has it. Cherokee culture has it. Cherokee culture would have one of our key component is tohi, or balance or harmony. And if you listen to our stories and listen to our worldviews and our elders, a lot of times it's how do we maintain balance and harmony among each other? There is no real evil or no real good. It's just balance and harmony. And how do you maintain that? And things are judged according to that one in our traditional space. That's a formation. In Christianity, I would say that Christianity, and even the word Christianity can be loaded in a lot of terms, because we have a lot of different variation, like which Christianity you're talking about. As you guys have known, I'm a really big on the early church and in the first several hundred years of Jesus. I find a lot of indigenous principles and cultures there more so than what is now modern Christianity. But if we go back and look at Christianity, we go back and look at the scriptures, we go look even at Ephesians that we just read in the area, I think it was there in verse 13. It says that we will be like the chosen one, mature human beings living and walking in his ways and fully reflecting who he is. No longer will we be like children who are tossed about like the waves and follows every voice they hear in the wind. We'll no longer listen to the ones who behave like tricksters with forked tongues, in verse 15. Instead, as true human beings, we will walk out this truth on the path of love. When we become fully grown, we'll be like the chosen one, joined together with him in the same way a body is connected to his head. There's that growth coming in it, right? And then of course earlier in Ephesians we had read it. There's the different teachers and people that are actually putting the community together because we're only formed as we work together in it. This Good Medicine Way as a church gathering only works when we all join together to be able to make this happen. If we weren't here, then something's missing. So spiritual formation, and I would say that from a Christian viewpoint, we're going to come back to the Cherokee here in a bit, but from that viewpoint, a definition, Robert Mulholland is a spiritual formation writer who's walked on. He wrote some phenomenal books, and one of his best ones called Invitation to a Journey. It's really about this journey. He defines that spiritual formation is the process of being formed into the image of Jesus, into the image of Christ, creator set free, for the sake of others. It is the process. It's the ongoing lifelong. We're never quite there. We're never there. Too much in I think a lot of American Christian journeys and theology, we try to think salvation is a event that happened. I would suggest that salvation is a process, right? It is something that has happened at the cross. It is happening to us, and one day will happen. Inaugurated atonement, theologically speaking, in the sense that it has compassed all of this. So the event that Creator Set Free did is also affecting how we are here and how we will be. And we won't really ever be formed until the new heavens and the earth, when we're resurrected in our new heavenly bodies and we're walking face to face with the Creator, right? So there is this journey, this process that we're becoming, and it comes back to being formed into the image of Christ, of Jesus, looking like Him. This is the fruits of the Spirit: humbleness and meekness, and love, gentleness, self-control, not for our own sakes, not that we might be prideful or pit up, but that we can be helping to others, to be able to walk with others through this journey and help them on the way. Just like when Creator Set Free came and He walked with others and He walked with people. He retreated into the wilderness and He prayed, but He also helped, right? And it is that balance of tohi between the active and going out and also the disciplines of being with Creator. Because quite frankly, and having been a pastor, if you're always pouring out and you're never receiving in, you're going to dry out, right? And if you're always getting poured in, but you never give out, you're going to have a flood on your hand. It's no good that direction. That's maybe my Cherokee coming out. You got to have the balance. You got to have this equality coming in and be able to work through that pipe and the process. And that's really where that formation becomes almost a transformation of where we are becoming deeper in a sense. And part of that formation of becoming is not behavior modification. And I think I say that because a lot of times behavior modification can look like, don't drink, don't do this, don't cuss, don't lie, don't cheat, don't murder. There's all these list of don'ts. And we try to do this one. And I would say even in traditionalists, in a lot of native culture, we have sometimes our own list. It could be just as dangerous on that side, where the goal of formation is to be the type of person that doesn't want to do that. Okay, is to be the type of person that doesn't want to do that. And I actually had that impact not too long ago of where it was hitting. Like I actually, I had I've been married now for, last week, about 5 days ago, celebrated my 26th wedding anniversary. And having been around the same person for 26 years, I still find myself getting little spats every once in a while. Then afterwards, like, why? Like, I don't want to be that type of person. I want to be formed to be the person who can respond as a husband in the way that is. I want to be the father. I want to be able to do it. And yet here I find myself responding in a way, and I'm like, where did that come from? Where did that bubble up into? Where did that pride, where did that place come into, right? And that's where even I have had to go back and ask myself over this time in places like, oh, let me step back and go, crap, how can I allow that mercy and grace and love of Christ, Creator Set Free, to work in me so that I could become the kind of person who's not responding out of my own woundedness? Because we're all wounded. We all have trauma. And then it's how can we allow the healing to be able to take place so we can respond out of a place of healing coming into it, to be able to be that one. So this is not a modification of I can't do this or I have to do ABC, because we can only keep a facade up for so long, and that is not healthy. It's not healthy, right? It's formation is the inner working that comes in to be through it, and it is something comes in, and it really comes in through disciplines and practices that come through it. Now, these practices are varied. And I would say for me, some of my spiritual discipline is going to the stomps. It is losing myself in the dance around the fire. It's being able to reflect upon my ancestors that walked and danced this fire with others. It is by spending time in solitude. It is reading the scriptures and meditating. It's about being active. It's about studying. It's about looking. It's about talking to others. It's going to counselors, going to mentors, going to people around. Sometimes it's fasting, coming to serving, right? I think there is a lot of ways and formations that come in. And the formational practices can be either from our indigenous cultures of dancing and of prayer. It could be rituals that come into it. Or, if you look back in the Christian faith, you see a lot of those same things, quite frankly. You see prayer and fasting. You see vision quests in our indigenous culture. We see them among in the ancient Christian practices and the monks. If you go read Saint Anthony the Desert, retreating out into the desert and seeing visions and playing time and stuff, and then you go to look at some of our places, you see the same practices at place. And then we see how these come up and build into us, and they look different, right? The Nords may be different, but the same basic concepts of helping us form, and how do we then take a knowledge of what's actually happening, and which is hard. I, by default, my typical process is I'm a go-getter. I typically have way too much going on. I'm going in, like I said, I worked a full-time job, and I pastored and planted a church, and I went to seminary, sometimes all three at the same time, and had a family and kids. How well I did that, you have to ask my wife. She still hangs around, but it was like, but I've had to learn. That's why I think spiritual formation disciplines is important, because I've had to slow down somewhere along the lines. God's like, you got to form yourself. And that coming into that. And when I love backpacking, I love hiking and backpacking. And I was in Idaho at the time, and that's just Shoshone, Bannock lands, and Nez Perce. And I would go back up into the Central Mountains, and I would initially I would just hike, and I would just keep going and going mile after mile, 20, 30 miles is going. And there's the spirit, he spoke to me. He's like, you got to slow down. So I took up a flagpole, and I started carrying a flagpole with me to stop at these lakes and cast a line into it. Because I took a flagpole because flagpole is active. You're moving. It's not just a spinner rod can do some of it, but it's not a throw out there with a bait and wait for it. Is So my spiritual formation was an active fly rod up in the mountains, because it made me stop. And even though I had some movement, I was able to stop, right? And so that's where, when we're talking about that, those disciplines look differently. But those concepts, I hope you're as we're talking here, is to think about how can we be formed, and even into our own perspective. And again, I go back to the stomp, and when I go to the stomp, it's amazing how much a lot of our traditional teachings are very similar to Creative Set Free. They're not always line to line. I want to respect the differences and deals, but there's a lot of them. I mean, it's being kind to each other, taking community, pausing, reflecting. When we do a stomp dance, we do a dance, and you sit down and you process. A lot of times in silence. Sometimes you'd be chatting on the sides. Sometimes you just sit in silence and you process what you just listened, and the song, and what your emotions are. That's formation. That's formational, right? How that begins to slow you down. That's actually against a lot of the modern commercialism that comes into us, against some of the workaholic stuff of our churches. Some of our tribes get workaholics, right? Because we're surrounded by it. How do we slow down? How do we be peace and silence? How do we serve others? How do we get along with each other? I think about this, the fact that, what is the value of a community? The value of community is, guess what? If you're in a community, in a church good or stomp grounds or whatever else, you are going to get offended. You are going to get offended. I just plain and simple. But are you willing to work through that offense and work for forgiveness and mercy from one another? You're going to offend somebody else. Are you going to work through that? That's formational. In a lot of other parts of our world that we live in, that I live in, I don't have to stay around people that much. My work would be the one thing that I really kind of do it. And even then, sometimes we'll get the professional facade on you because either I'm the boss or I'm below. And so sometimes I may get offended or might hurt somebody's feeling. And then you put that professional facade on, that mask, because you just, hey, I want to keep my job, so I'm going to cover it up, but you don't really deal with the thing inside of us. In my neighborhood, I might get pissed at the HOA or my neighbors, but I don't have to have to care because I go into my house and shut the doors and I lock everybody out. Our blood, our family, our churches, our stomps, our grounds, those are elements where we get to be formed. Those are the crucibles, the where that metamorphosis that kind of come in through it, where we get to work through things so we can actually become the people who reflect Creator set free. So we kind of wrap it up on that and say, there's different disciplines that we can lean into to go from onto it. But the ideal would be is what are we stopping and how are we being formed and what are we being formed into? And I just invite you to ask those questions and then to sit with those questions and think about the activities that you're doing, the activities around you, and be able to think about how are those activities? How's that entertainment? How is that work? Is these relationships? How are these insert? How are they affecting my soul, my spirit, my body? How do I feel afterwards? And then what things do I might need to bring in and what things I may need to bring out? Because only you and the Creator can answer that question. But realizing that hopefully that as we profess the Creator set free, is that we will be able to sit there and go, okay, Lord, here I am. Form me. Form me. I am a living sacrifice before you. Transform me into the image of your Son for the sake of others. We'll sit with that.
Thanks, Josh. So we're gonna move into our centering reflection time as we take what Josh was telling us and let it fill us, fill our minds, fill our hearts as we form our own questions or our own reflections that we want to share with Josh. He gave us some good questions to think about, to ponder about how we're being formed and what we're being formed into. And as we move into this reflection time too, I'm just going to read again from our passage in Ephesians, just this little section to kind of give us a little bit of I don't know, a little bit of this preparation or this push into what the Holy Spirit is doing in us tonight. So it says, these gifts were given to prepare Creator's holy people for the work of helping others and to make the body of the chosen one strong until we all follow the good road in harmony with each other, because we know and understand who Creator's Son is. We will then be like the chosen one, mature human beings, living and walking in his ways and fully reflecting who he is. So go ahead, Brian. Thanks, Brian. So let's gather our thoughts, gather our questions. I see that Helen already has her hand up, so go ahead, Helen.
Well, yeah, I got my hand up, but I get a lot of turns. So if somebody else wants to go, that's all right. I think for now I'll start because let people collect their thoughts. But
Come on.
hello?
Come on.
Come on. All right. That's encouragement. I was thinking of another story as you were telling this one, and this one comes from Scandinavia. When the troll people wanted to test humans and see what they were really like, they stole a human baby and they put a troll baby in its place. And like the mother in your story, the mother was surprised and stuff, but she saw a child, first of all, and she tried to feed the child human food and he wouldn't take it. And they said, no, you're going to have to go out and get frogs and snails and stuff. And so she went out. Her husband is horrified, like, what are you doing? You should be trying to get our child back. And this child kept growing and he had different needs. She kept trying to meet them, like I'm trying to remember some of the things she did, and it was usually something that would be repulsive, but that was necessary for him to go on. And finally, the trolls brought back their son and said that all the time when you were taking care of him, we were taking care of your child. When you gave him the food that he needed, we gave your child the food that he needed. And at one point, the husband had taken this troll child up to a cliff to throw him down, and the mother had grabbed him back. And we almost threw your son over a cliff at the same time. But it was such an interesting reflection. And then the husband was ashamed that he had been such a horrible father in this. But I was thinking about formation as this went on, how this changed the mother as well as the child who was changing, how she not only had to accept him, but she had to keep learning more about what he needed and what it meant to be his mother. That it couldn't just fit into a neat definition or even what she'd expected. I'm sure there's no what to expect when you're expecting a troll book out for her. So anyway, it was a really interesting story, and it was one that made me think. As you were talking about formation and how these experiences that I think at the time maybe all we see is the trauma and the pain, but they are forming us at the same time. We have to get some distance from it to see it.
Yeah.
So that's all.
Exactly. Thank you, Helen. Yeah, that's so true in so many ways. And I guess I didn't call it out specifically in thinking about it, but if to be more direct on that in that story, you thought, of course, you saw the boy was formed by his mother, and then he formed the monsters who then formed others, right? So you see that cascading effect that would happen with just one person who forms you. Kimberly?
Many of you know that I just moved. I've been in my new place for a month now, but the weeks leading up to the move and the weeks after the move were so chaotic. It affected me emotionally, physically, spiritually, and intellectually. There were a lot of mornings where I just couldn't even sleep until 5 o'clock in the morning, and I'm like, that's nice. And lack of sleep threw off my meal schedule. It it affected the way that I could make sense of things and how I could communicate and what I could read and take in. And it was just ridiculous, you know? I didn't think it would be that hard. But I wrote down in this notebook, cocoon me until the utter chaos of transformation is over. And I was just talking to someone, we had a picnic. It was a graduation picnic, and I was talking to some friends from church. And the thing that concerns me about people that are really active in the church, some of them, is that they are 100% full tilt, high speed, full speed ahead. There's no time to rest between one thing and another. And I see them hamster wheeling themselves through the process and wondering when they're going to hear from God and what's the next step and where's the direction and all that kind of stuff. And it's just like, well, if you would just be still, even for a half an hour, that might help. But we are so highly performance driven,
Mhm.
and our worth and value is based on what we can accomplish, how other people can benefit from it, and what those other people think. And the missing quotient in all of that is creator. Amidst all that chaos, it's just suddenly a person realizes, well, where's God in all of this? Well, he's over there where you pushed him, or he's under all of that stuff that you piled on top of him, all of that clutter. So it's of our own doing. But I think slowing down is so hard to do, but it's so restorative, healing. And if we don't take the time to do it, it's just going to continue on and on and on until Creator intervenes and says, okay, now I'm going to make you slow down. With whatever way he does that. Car breaks down on the highway, snowstorm knocks off all the power, whatever it may be. There'll be a time where it's no longer our choice to slow down and breathe and look at the surroundings and pray and sing and praise and do all those things that tether us back to the Creator where our life comes from. So
Yeah.
just an observation.
No, Widow, thank you. I think that one to kind of pull that one is, if you look across a lot of traditions, outside of Christianity, inside of Christianity, indigenous and non-indigenous, you find that there are certain practices that a lot of groups have landed on, and one of them is stillness, solitude, meditation, mindfulness. It's hitting in the corporate world. So I work in the corporate world now for 20 years, doing a lot of different stuff as been a fraud and prevention investigator, private investigator of anti-counterfeiting. I've done a lot of stuff, and you get in the corporate world and people start talking about mindfulness, and you think about that, and that's basically meditation. Just a different name for it, but that's more correct in the business world, and which is a sense of sitting, going like those deep breaths and going, okay, Creator, your mercy, breathe into me your spirit, right? And there's that form to coming in. And we have that in the areas in addition ways of slowing down and being still. The Sabbath that was put into place, which is not the legalistic view, but as a something for us, for humans, to be able to slow us down, right? And it's so easy to get caught up on it. And in this, what again, Kimberly just said, like it's either body's gonna crash or we're gonna slow down. And I think that's needed more and more in our modern era than ever before. And now I would say that there's always flip sides, right? I'm always this balanced Tohi person, is in sometimes we got some of us that are almost too slow. And sometimes God's telling us to move forward. And then sometimes he'll come through it. However, so I don't want to deny that. I don't want to deny that that's a reality for certain people who might be listening to this. I would say typically most of us will probably fall on the too active side. But if you do follow on the not active enough, realize that sometimes, just like an eagle will kick their nest out their young out of the nest, and sometimes God might kick you out that way too. So.
Hey, Joshua. So, you were talking about spiritual formation, salvation as a process. It's like a continual imitation to become like Jesus, to be like Jesus, and a lot of what you're sharing tonight is really complements well what we heard last week from Kenny about being in community with others, and fighting through it, even with people who we dislike or may have differing opinions on things with, and all of that. But it reminded me too of when Jesus was calling the disciples, and they were trying to decipher if they wanted to follow Jesus, and Jesus's main statement, or even the other disciples' main statement to follow Jesus, is just come and see. Come and see if he is who he says he is, right? And so it's an invitation into that community with Jesus, being with Jesus, and I think too, like you may have referred to it on some point, but I think that as within Western Christianity, we focus a lot on individual spiritual formation and maybe focus on that a little bit too primarily. As far as what we do, like the go away and pray like Jesus did, like the hide up in the mountains, just you and God kind of thing. But we ignore all of the times that Jesus was annoyed with the disciples. Jesus was trying to teach the disciples, calling them hard-headed, dealing with the Pharisees, dealing with people, right? A lot of us seem like we want to, it's easier to push people away than to struggle with them. So I was wondering what you think as far as spiritual formation being, is it mostly a communal process, or like a half and half between communal and individual, or is there even a way to quantify it, I guess, as far as what how best it affects us, and which way we take as far as whichever one we want to go for, aim for.
There you go. Well, it's definitely a both and. I'm gonna go back to Tohi again. I bounce harmony. I can't get, that mystery, and there is that mystery kind of concept in there that it is a both and. So if you're looking at it, even in the Old Testament, you see Deuteronomy, you see Joshua and stuff and there's that communal aspect. And, Deuteronomy says, hey, if you go into the land and you're doing this, you will have life. If you don't follow it, you're not going to. And Leviticus basically was a sense of, hey, do this for life, do this for, this is death. Now, I will say that this is all grace, because the people of Israel were brought out of Egypt by grace. They didn't do anything. It was all about grace. And there was a bunch of Egyptians and other ethnic groups that got brought in to form this new community that's now called Israel. And it was all grace. But now that they have been made into this community, you're like, how now do we live? The quote, Francis Schaeffer's book of that name, which I'm not endorsing. I'm just saying it's a great title. I haven't actually read the book. How now can we live, right? It's like, so in other words, like, this is the sense of, now what do I do? And he's like, this is the areas I'm going to form you as a community. I want to form you as a group. And so I was forming you as a community. Sabbath, take care of the animals, take care of each other. How do I deal with certain disagreements? How do I doing it? Right? So all of Leviticus and the Torah is this sense of, how do I form a community to be able to walk in the ways that one, so that we can be able to be a light into the nations. Jesus says, you are my treasure possessions there. The formations of the nation Israel was to influence the rest of the people around them. And then likewise, since you see Jesus with the 12, you said, right, he formed the 12, the 3, the 12, the 72, the crowds. He sets them out. Everything that Jesus did, the 3 did. Everything that Jesus did, the 3 did, the 12 did. Everything that Jesus did, the 3 did, the 12 did, the 72 did. Everything that Jesus did, the 3 did, the 12 did, the 72 did, the crowds did. Right, the people of Israel. That's why you go into the acts that Paul does. Right, there's the formations that are starting to happen on a communal level. Now, how do we work with community? Sociologists will say that it starts with people as well. So you have cultural areas and views of communities being developed and formed, but then you have individuals that are being formed and shaped as well. And just like you have Judas that comes into the 12 that then threatens the community, we have individual threatening communities, or you have communities that threaten individuals. If you think about the Pharisees, they got so legalistic, they were threatening the individuals on their spiritual formation to go on to it. They came out and they put in Peter and Paul in jail because they didn't want them to be formed in a way that was different than they wanted to. So there is this give and take, and that's why we got to be careful in looking at it. And this is, as a community, being able to sit and discern what actually is in formation for us. And I would say a lot of our even our spiritual groups and churches. And this again, I love the Bride of Christ. I love churches. I've been a church planner. I've been a pastor. I've been in it. And there are certain times that sometimes I look at organized churches and I go, you guys, you're being formed in the wrong direction because they're being formed towards the building or the people or how many numbers of things. Their goals are off. I've been in groups and people like, hey, you're great. This group here, I love it. We're actually you have we don't have the hierarchy and we're able to share and spread, but we got to be careful because we're also remote. So that remoteness for a lot of us forms us in maybe a different aspect than before. Now we have to be careful and acknowledge that on a communal level. And how do we then work against that on the individual level? So it's not an easy, Steve, it's not an easy split up, but it is at play. And it's being aware of it's key. I know for myself, the longer I'm in corporate America working, I have to be careful because I see the corporate America forming me. And then I begin to realize that this forming me in a direction I don't want to go. And then I got to pull back and go, all right, how do this is my value, but, and they have places it. So it's a little of that balance and harmony interactions and places. And it's like, how do you say which one does both? And it's like it's all interwoven in a sense that we just got to, it's just fluid.
Yeah. I get it. I've done a lot of church work here in Albuquerque, done pastoring as well. And people who get offended with the church have church hurt. Their first inclination is to move away from community, to completely forsake community, and then feel like it's fine watching sermons online or these online personalities, which I think a lot of them aren't necessarily worthwhile to really have them forming you, right? Because you think about what they're forming you into, kind of thing. And so it's been a little bit of a, I don't know how you could say it in my life, a struggle in my life of just trying to figure out ways to help them see community for what it is, even though there may be some offense there may be some harm or hard things to deal with.
Right.
To not fully give up on community. So I've been thinking through that. So thanks. I appreciate
Yep.
it. All right, Paul, you had a question?
You're on
go
mute
ahead.
still.
Unmute yourself.
Brother Paul, yeah. There you go.
Thank you. Yeah, two buttons. Okay. Yeah, I have a comment as well. There's several things that come to mind from Kimberly's question and talk. What her observation was about how you just kind of have to get completely still. And it brought to mind that the scripture, be still and know that I am God. Well, I am is identity. And we're talking about formation. It has to do with identity. It has to do with who are you? And so if we're reflecting off of everything, everyone, hither and yon, we're going to have a fractured identity, But if we're reflecting on, as the scripture, I think Paul is saying, the more that we are looking at Christ, the more we see Creator sets free, the more we become like Him. We begin to reflect that image. And so it all kind of tells me that the cocooning of the caterpillar, before it becomes a butterfly, it's necessary. You have to close in individually, and I believe also community needs to get like in each other's faces enough, you know what I mean? Actually be present with one another and mindful of one another enough that we have to start exercising the golden rule. Jesus said that the whole law is summed up in love God and love your neighbor as yourself. So when we can do that, we're going to, it might, have a certain amount of chaos that goes on with it, but that's the end result. It's love will be what is the product. I'm reminded that when a caterpillar becomes a butterfly, it actually has to completely dissolve in the cocoon. It doesn't have anything like itself while it's in there. It actually completely gets to be just mush, and all of the DNA and everything is recombining to become what God had intended for it to become. But it has to go through that process. And sometimes it's like that in church groups. And unfortunately, a lot of people will want to break away or, go off on their own. Or, I've done it myself. It's just painful to have to stay in a situation where the wolves are tearing the flock apart, for example. And yet, the more that people are committed to working through whatever it is together, the more that unity, that cohesiveness is there. And it's going to bring about the transformation, I believe, into that final product that God has intended for us. Whether it's individually getting apart and knowing I am, or collectively.
Yeah, agreed. I think that's wise words there, Paul. The only thing I would add to that one is, as much as I totally agree about that staying put and working through it, is I also want to recognize that there is, in some cases, what I would say really is, organizational trauma and abuse, and we want to call that out and saying that if you had to leave because of the abuse or the leadership problems, no shame and guilt in that. That's not what we're talking about. We're really looking about the times that we're sometimes in our modern society, we did bug out too quickly. So I just want to make that distinction. We're for people and that deals.
I think I've done both. I've experienced the trauma, and I've also bugged out before because I'm like, oh, I don't want to have to go through that again.
Yeah.
We have a question in house, Twyla. Go ahead.
What's more of a comment? I appreciate the lesson you taught us, and it's another opportunity to recognize how God works within us the way he does for a reason. And the church I'm in now is struggling a lot with changes that have come about because of the leadership and the Methodist way of this is how it's always been done. And it's caused a lot of conflict in the church body. And it's caused a lot of people to leave the congregation because they don't want to deal with the changes or they don't want to deal with the moving around of things. And some of my very, very good friends have left. And some have found other places to go, and some are just left. I don't know what they're doing, but last weekend, I had the opportunity to go and meet up with our pastor that used to be here 2 years ago, I guess, since she left. And while she was here, there was so much good medicine way things happening that myself, I thought, oh, this is wonderful. It's going to be like this forever. And the church is going to change and grow. And I was new to the Methodist walk anyway. And then some things happened in the church, bullying from the men in the church and just different things that caused her to say, enough. God let me go, I'm going. So she retired early. Well, I got to go visit with her, a friend of mine and I, last weekend. And as we were talking, and she asked us both the question, how are you spiritually? And as I was thinking about that, and as I opened up to her, like I often do, I shared with her how I'm feeling about all of this conflict in the church and how it's affecting me. And she just said, similar to what you said, Joshua, that, you have to decide, do you want to stay in there and battle this battle? Is that where God put you? Or is God released you? And I said, no, he hasn't. He has not let me go from here. Well, the girl that was with me, my friend, was one of the ones that left. And she did find another church, but she kept interjecting, different things, her opinion of why she left and how it's still the same way. And I said, but I can deal with that except for one person in the body that I really struggle with. And something you said, as well as something Nima said, helped me to see that Creator put me here, and I've got to find out what it is he wants me to become while I'm here. So what you said, all of that you said, just reiterated what she and I talked about. And I knew it, and I felt relief. I felt a release. And I went to church yesterday after being gone a Sunday. I had a whole different feeling about being in the church because I recognized I have to let God show me what is my place. So what all you said was just really was reminding me that God is in charge and I got to stay at grace. So I'm still here.
Amen. There you go. Well, thank you for sharing so much and doing it. And may you, the Lord, continue to reveal his purpose and help you're formed into his image for the sake of others around you, wherever that may take you.
Okay, Alvin, go ahead.
You're on mute as well.
Yes, Alvin Deer. I'm in Oklahoma City, and I want to say Wado to my Salagi leader tonight. I too, on my Creekside, we have to, when we identify ourselves by as a Christian, I add my home church and my grounds, stomp dance grounds, and my stomp dance grounds is New Tulsa,
Okay.
which is south of Holdenville, Oklahoma. And
I'm in Long Valley. Long
oh,
Valley there in Chewy. This is
yeah.
for you going back in the same way. Yeah.
Well, as I was listening to, one of the things that I think we all realize when we pick up the Bible and shake it around at people and everything, we look at the Bible as a book written in stone, meaning that everything that's in there doesn't change. Although it was written in blood, we know that. But it's kind of like when you go to college and you get for me, I've been an accountant all my life, and I get an accounting book. Well, what's in that book is like I said, written in stone. But the fact of the matter is that the generations have changed what the Bible is all about. especially when we have manifest destiny and we have the papal bulls creating, the genocide of our people. But I have been a minister for 42 years in the Methodist Church, belonging to the Oklahoma Indian Missionary Conference. But I have worked outside. And what I want to say is that I think the Bible is a book that was written to show the transformation that is going on. Because I look at the Word of God, and in 2 Corinthians 11:14, it says, and no wonder, for Satan himself transformed himself into an angel of light. And and then the next scripture, therefore it is no great thing if ministers also transform themselves. And it warns us that in 2 Corinthians 11:13, for there will be false prophets and deceitful workers transforming themselves into and I believe the whole, when you read the Bible, it is warning us that in the last days that there will be a huge transformation. And what we need to do is like is to realize, just like I like Brian's scripture. We don't ask the our Maker, why did you give me this shape? And does not the one who forms the clay give it also its purpose? And what the Bible is really telling us is that in the last days we're going to have to recognize the transformation that is going on, and the transformation that God is uh, 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 giving us, you might say, as a pathway to eternity, giving us the pathway to walk, so that we will walk this path that is transforming around us, so that we can continue to be the what God intended for us to be transformed. And so what we have, of course, is uh, uh, churches that are what they're becoming political entities, as opposed to transforming into what God wants us to be in the last days. We got to recognize that transformation is going on constantly. And as long as we talk about what Christ came for and transformed us into, that we continue that, I think in the last days, whenever that is, we will be standing on the right road and have helped our people move into what he intended for us all along. And I will stop there.
No, it's a good word. And I think I appreciate it. Would appreciate it there. And I get right back to the fact that if everybody leaves here, I really go back to the question of who are we being formed into?
Yeah.
Who are we being formed into? Because we are being formed And hopefully you will answer that question. And I answer it with, I want to be formed into, who are we formed in, and who do we want to be formed into? Because we have to follow up to that one, right? So it's recognizing that maybe I'm on a different path. Maybe I'm being formed in a way that is maybe not the path maybe I want to be. Because sometimes indifference is its own choice. Lack of a choice is a choice. And sometimes by just lack of either knowledge or we just don't care, sometimes we're being formed into a direction that we don't want to. And so it's to take that step back. And this is Jesus's call to come follow me, right? And this is a daily call to pick up our cross and follow him. There's no shame that maybe we drifted off the path. No shame in everything else. The next question is are we turning? Are we making that? Out of what you say, in our groups and such. So good word.
Cheryl, go ahead. We got time for probably about one or two more questions, and I see Casey's showed up here too. So Casey, just want to let you know if you want to jump in with anything, you want to share anything about your trip or anything else, you can always pop on as well. So go ahead, Cheryl.
I'm not trying to dishonor my family or parents, but this is kind of an example. I have a family that it's like I'm adopted. They have a very criminal lifestyle. I've had to disconnect from all of them, or most of them, just to go on with life. And there came a point when I was young, I wanted to graduate high school. I wanted to go to school. And my mom wanted me to do some street life stuff. I'm like, no, that's never going to happen. I think I'm adopted or something. I look like you, but something's going on there. I'm going to go live with grandma. And she got really upset and said, well, I took you out there to live with me. And I said, well, and here's an example. She goes, why? And I said, Mom, draw a picture. If I drew a picture of myself grown up and you raised me, and then I draw another picture of myself grown up and grandma raised me. It's two very different pictures. Which one am I going to pick? I'm going to pick grandma. And I love you, but I can't be here anymore. I can't do it. So a suggestion is ask yourself, are you on that path of beauty or not? Draw a picture of yourself. You got to change people, places, and things, jobs, everything, especially if you have addictions, that demon that sits there and tries to say you're an addict. No, you're not. It's a demon that's trying to tell you that. That's a lie, but I'm just saying, draw a picture of yourself with this person or that job or living over there, and then draw a picture of the path you're on now and pick which one would Jesus want you to pick. So that's what I had to tell my mom. And I just say, I love you, but sometimes you got to dust your feet off and go a different way. So anyway, that's all I got.
There you go. Thank you, Widow. There's definitely some hard choices and hard deals. But those, pick up your cross. Pick up your cross daily and follow me.
With
Anyone else?
discussion we've been having, and there was a thing that I was thinking about when you were sharing the story about the boy with the crooked face, and kind of the theme of a lot of that story is that when you're confronted with something that could be scary and challenging, do you react from fear or do you react with love? And the crooked faced boy kept reacting with love, and that was transformative to the so-called monsters that he was coming face to face with. But it really reminded me of the experience of the Cherokee people, in the 17th and 1800s, where, when the Europeans first came on the shores of Turtle Island, some tribes ran away, some tribes fought them, some tribes tried to work with them. Like the Cherokee were definitely a tribe and a people that said, okay, you're here on this land with us. How can we integrate with each other and make a more and make a positive society together, even though it might be different than what we've experienced before. And so in history, you really see that the Cherokee did that, but the Cherokee were so successful in the ways of the white people that the white people got jealous, and then eventually, Andrew Jackson had them forcibly removed. But that really reminded me of the story you told, because they welcomed these people, and it went good for a while until the people got jealous. So I mean, I don't know. I know you've studied those histories a lot, and so I just was wondering if you had any like insights towards how that story connects to that, and how that might connect to your ideas of spiritual formation.
It's a good one. I mean, well, yeah. Well, so history is always complicated, right? Like you said, there's a lot of those eastern coast, eastern Mississippi River tribes that tried at different points in history. Because a lot of times you have to ask at what point in history, right? Because we had our fights against the Europeans just as much as anybody else. Up until Afghanistan, we actually held the record of the longest battle against the U.S. We fought from 1776 to 1794. That was Dragon Canoe and his group, which was actually half of the tribe, because half the tribe said, "Hey, we're going to stop fighting in the 80s," and then Dragon Canoe kept on going for another while, right? So we were, all of our villages had like independence. There was none of this, king or group over that one until the 1800s, when we formed our own constitution, 1821, I think, or whatever. But to that point, though, I think there is a sense that in that story and that value of looking at those areas, those monsters and those people, and how does that form you? And I think that did influence a little bit. I mean, I don't have direct one-to-one correlations that people saying, "Hey, this is a story that changed them." But if you look at that, how you can adapt and how can you actually go for and balance. And a lot of the Cherokee culture was on balance until heat. When things get unbalanced, you want to bring that back. And so some of that would be is like, hey, how do I look at this cultural shift? Because our cultures are always changing. Everything that we think is traditionalist right now was new at one point. That's just the reality. Everything that is a tradition now was new at some point. Now that could have been 100 years ago. It could have been 1,000 years ago. It could have been 2 days ago. But at some point that tradition became it, right? And how do you adapt to that? And so with that one is that sense of that balance of how do we balance that out and bring it? And if I looked at back then in the 1800s, a lot of the balance was, hey, if we're going to survive with the changing situations, how do we then use the new technology and teachings and education and stuff to bring it? And what's fascinating about my people is that and we're not unique, but there's a lot of documentation saying that we adapted the technology and we adapted the stuff, but kept our Cherokee culture intact. Just like we don't have to give up being Cherokees to be a Christian. We can read our theology through a Christian Cherokee lens. We did that in our teachings and our farming and other areas. Now, what's happened today, if I would speak right now to my people and say we've gone too far the other way, like a lot of times it could be influenced too much by a lot of this individualistic and rampant commercialism that's at play. And in some ways, we got to pull that back and that balance and be able to say, wait a minute, you got to come back that way. And so that's where the ugly beast in some ways now is solitude. The ugly beast is simplicity. Those are the beasts that we're afraid of. We're afraid of simplicity. We're afraid of solitude. We're afraid of this one as a broad speaker. We have 400,000 people, but over 500 traditionalists. I'm one of the few stomp dancers, unfortunately. It's like we need to recognize and have it listen to the monsters, so to speak, to be able to bring that balance back and bring our people back on that one. And I would say in the next generation, there's going to be another there will be another area in that one. So so the problem with there's no videos or pictures allowed at stomp dances. There are some social dances out there that have been recorded. They're non-ceremonial. They're just like they're like we have raffles and stuff and something of that nature, and you can listen to those songs and see them. But I think there's only one video that's ever been recorded of a ceremonial one, and that was that Redbird or the Stokes, and that was in the 80s or I think 90s, within the 90s, that was allowed at a special occasion when the chief and the elders had really sat down and they had a documentary on that one. But it's very, 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 very rare because you don't record it. But anyway.
Okay, so
Go ahead,
we'll
Casey.
he's got his hand up, and then after that, we'll start wrapping it up with final words. So go ahead, Casey. Oh, we just lost him.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me now?
Yep.
All right. Yeah. Thank you, Joshua. I'd like to share your comments. How would the importance of family in our spiritual formation, and where's the place now for reformation? Because the church has gone through reformation, and it's a time that I think Good Medicine Way is a part of the reformation of the way to do church.
The reformation?
The reformation of the way church is done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the question that's being asked. Like you said, I think, Uncle Casey, you're right on it, is that a lot of us are asking, trying to reform churches and refigure out how to do this. And it's hard and it's deals. And I think the question is we kind of ask with that one is, how is the technology we're looking, how is what we're doing helping to form us? And one of the values I find in Good Medicine Way here is, again, the fact that we ask these questions, right? And I think, Casey, you've mentioned this every time, right? It's like we get to actually respond and ask questions and hear people and debate things in a friendly way, even if we don't do it. That actually helps us out. But those questions because as we're being reformed, the church is being redone. The question is what is it being reformed into? And is that going to lead us closer to the person of Jesus or not? And we have to not be afraid to do that, not be afraid to break down barriers, traditions, whatever it may speak, if it's going to lead us into helping us be able to do that one. Realizing that needs to be a spiritual discernment process, because I think sometimes in people's zeal of reforming church, and I think a lot of us seen this over the last 20 years with the emerging church and emergent and post all these different things, is they've almost thrown away too much. They broke everything instead of being discernment, of being able to say what are hindrances to that reformation and what are beneficial to it, and being able to prayerfully discern what that is, so that when we actually do create something new, it actually still leading us there rather than just tearing things down for the sake of tearing it down.
All right. Well, thank you. Thank you, Joshua. I'm on the road here, almost Oklahoma City now, and thanks, Steve, for taking over, and Brian for being there too, and everyone that else is on. Have a good evening.
Safe travels, Uncle.
Yeah, thank you, Casey. Safe travels. So as we wrap up, Joshua, could you give us a final affirmation for those of us who may be in a situation that we can't discern whether we're in a traumatic community or if it's a community that we should be staying in? Maybe you could help us to just give us one final word of encouragement, how to discern that, and then maybe give for either case, whether it is traumatic or whether we should stick with it, give us maybe a discipline or practice, some kind of encouragement to of what we should do in response to that.
That's good, Steve. Hmm. So I would start in both those places is I'll go back to solitude and silence, centering prayer. Centering prayer is this sense of um, it's being able to bring yourself back and centers. A lot of times it's like we'll take a word or concept like love, Jesus, mercy, grace, and you sit in silence and you just think about it and just what did that come through? And your mind may wonder and you may start thinking about the dishes or whatever else. Bring it back. No shame, no deals. Give yourself grace. This is not a thing of like, oh, how many times? Nope. Every single person, ADHD, regular people, everybody will always have your mind drift. But bring yourself back. Breathing deals, breathing slow. And sit for a minute. And then in 2 minutes, then 3 minutes. And sometimes I set a timer on my phone and just bringing back that stillness. And as you learn that the ideal is sitting in silence for 2, 3, 5, 10, 15 minutes, you will find the spirit bringing some stuff to your soul. And you're like, oh, there's something. Oh, and just center yourself down there to be able to sense it. Because I think that's where I would start because we have to be able to recognize the presence of the spirit, the voices of the spirit. And the scripture says that when Elijah was in the mountain, the whirlwind came, the fire came, the earthquake came, but it was in the still voice that he spoke. When Moses went up on Mount Sinai and the fire scorched the mountain, again, it was in the silence of that darkness that the Spirit spoke. And so, even though I firmly believe that the Spirit can speak walking down the street, Jesus had the Spirit told him to stop and look at people. I also think that for most of us, a lot of times we need to learn how to hear his voice, and we learn how to hear his voice in the silence. So I think it starts with that. Starts with centering prayer and silence. And then as we sit in that silence and we begin after we move out of that period of 3 4 5 minutes, again as you kind of work through it, is be able to sit and go, is to ask the Lord and the Spirit, is this congregation, is this group I'm with, is this bringing me closer to Jesus to be formed into his deals? Look at Galatians 5, the fruits of the Spirit. And the fruits of the Spirit, merciful, joy, gentleness, self-control, these are things that bubble out of the fruit. The fruit doesn't produce by, the vine doesn't sit there and groan and like, I'm going to be a fruit today. This is naturally breathing into it. So if these communities are naturally breathing in this fruits coming on out, then that's really where you start seeing that, right? And if you see that fruit, then okay. Now, if you're in a traumatic situation, and you're seeing this just too much and it just is ripping you down and it's like you start panicking whenever you think of that, get out, right? And get out maybe finding somebody to talk to. This is in community and like, hey, I'm feeling this. Is this something you're messing with it, right? It could be somebody outside the community that you need to talk to. A counselor is good. I'm a firm believer in counseling and psychology. There's nothing wrong with that. By all means, we need it in so many ways, but it could be an elder to talk to help you discern this, because I think there is a communal aspect to it. It could be like one of our sisters there who says that, you know what, God's calling me to stay. And there are times like Jeremiah. Jeremiah wanted to leave out of Jerusalem. And he was like, this is painful. I got the Nebuchadnezzar's coming over me. Everybody's coming on me. I'm getting beat up. This is not good. And the Lord's like, nope, I need you to stay. Jeremiah, you got to take because I need you to tell these people. And he's like, okay. Now, I will tell you that Jeremiahs are rare. So, and you need discernment because Jeremiah needs some friends. When Jeremiah was in the bottom of the well, he had some friends to pull his ass out. He's not a lone wolf. So I want to caution you there. It's like you better have some people around you if you're going to stay in the community who's surrounded by besieged. So centering prayer, find somebody to talk to. find an elder, find a counselor, find somebody to talk to, and then start that way. And then there's others from there, but that's where I would start, Steve, in either any of those cases you have. And I think out of that discernment will kind of happen. So
Great. Thank you, Joshua. Great response. Great answer. And two, if you find yourself in any of those situations and you need somebody to reach out to, but don't feel like you have somebody to reach out to, you can always get in touch with us here at Good Medicine Way by emailing gmw4abq@gmail.com. And one of us will reach out to you. So we just want you to know that you have a community here with us. You have a community of people who will listen to you, pray with you, and maybe give you some insight on what you can do in any particular situation. But you have people.
Yeah.
So I just want to know that. So again, thank you, Joshua. We're gonna move into our closing round dance. Oh, sorry. Oh,
Casey.
oh, yeah. Casey, is that hand up from earlier, or do you have something else to say?
Oh. It went away.
It disappeared. So, all right. I think Brian. I think that's you're up.
All right, so quick question for everybody. Yeah, like originally on the schedule, we were going to do the Ganaronkwa round dance, but during the conversation, there was a Tom Waits song that kept coming to mind. So we could do the round dance, which would just be like an encouraging kind of thing for us all together, or I could do the Tom Waits one, which would be more of a kind of introspective, thoughtful thing. What does everybody feel like they need in the moment?
Tom Waits.
as I trust your spirit with you, Brian. So you just, if the spirit's leading, roll with it.
Yeah.
All right, so this, like many Tom Waits songs, this song is kind of, has a lot of irony and tongue-in-cheekness to it. But the song is basically about, how we can get stuck in our woundedness and stuck in our hurt. Yes, 100%, absolutely, we need to acknowledge the hurts that have happened to us and try to hold people accountable for that. But ultimately, we want to move towards healing, and healing comes with coming back into community. That's where we're really healed. We don't heal in isolation. And so just like the monsters in the story of the crooked-faced boy, like they had once been part of the community and were cast out for whatever reason. And the longer they stewed in their bitterness and their anger and their vengefulness, the more hideous they become. And then we see the crooked-faced boy responding to them in love, and then ultimately their final act of healing from the path that the crooked-faced boy put them on was to come back to the village, come back to the community, confront those that had cast them out, and then ultimately be welcomed back into the community and bring in a perspective and knowledge that they had learned through their experiences. So that's kind of the connections I made with this song. I think I got the words here. I'll put them up so we can see how it goes. And feel free to sing along. It repeats a lot. So, but yeah, it's got a lot of tongue-in-cheek humor to it too. So don't worry about chuckling at some of the lines. They're intended to be that way. Well, the moon is broken and the sky is cracked. Come on up to the house. The only things that you can see is what you lack. come on up to the house. Now all y'all crying don't do no good. Come on up to the house. Come down off the cross, we can use the wood. Got to come on up to the house. The children, come on up to the house. Come on up to the house. The world is not my home, I'm just passing through. Got to come on up to the house. There's no light in the tunnel, no irons in the fire. Come on up to the house. You're singing lead soprano in a junk man's choir. Got to come on up to the house. Does life seem nasty, brutish and short? Come on up to the house. The seas are stormy, you can't find no port. Got to come on up to the house. Come on up to the house. You gotta come on up to the house. The world is not my home, I'm just passing through. Got to come on up to the house. Now there's nothing in the world that you can do but come on up to the house. You've been whipped by the forces that are inside you. Come on up to the house. Well, you're high up top, your mountain of woe. Come on up to the house. Well, you know you should surrender, but you can't let it go. Why don't you come on up to the house? You got to come on up to the house. Come on up to the house. The world is not my home, I'm just passing through. Got to come on up to the house. You got to come on up to the house.
Thank you, Brian. That was great. So for our send-off blessing, Twyla's gonna send us out.
Creator God, we thank you for this time that you brought us together once again to learn how to live on the road that you put us on, how to walk the path that you put us on, how to follow you. I ask, Father God, that you would protect each one of us as we go our separate ways in our separate communities, but also remind us to let your light shine through us so that those that we have ability to show will follow us and come to your good road. Keep us safe, bring us all safely back, fill our spirits with joy and thoughts of love and kindness. Keep us humble, Father, so that your spirit can work in us and through us. Keep everyone that is traveling on the road this night safe. Bring them to their journey's end, full of glory. Touch the bodies that need to be healed. You know who they are and what they need. We will always remember to give you glory and honor. Aho.
Thank you, Twyla. Well, everybody, thanks for being here tonight. Have a good night. Love you all. Reach out if you need anything.
Amen. Thank you.
Thanks, Joshua. Appreciate your words tonight.
That cat is so pretty. It's so cute.
Yeah, her name's Gemini, because look at, she's half black, half brown or something.
Oh,
So I
yeah.
named her Gemini. Cool song.
Yeah, Brian, thanks for that song. That was great. It really touched my spirit just now.
Oh, I'm glad.
So, but yeah, we'll see you guys next week then.
All right.
Is everything going well, Upataka? Oh, she.
I'm sorry, what one more time? What was that?
Is it going well for you? You doing all right?
I'm hanging in there. Just the transformation, a little bit of growth,